Okay, not too long ago, I made a promise on a live stream not to get involved in the absolute deluge of geopolitical discourse online. Russia has obviously invaded Ukraine, and I really just wanted to play Elden Ring. It's an amazing game. You can find my review linked down below. I have like almost 200 hours in game now. But the point is, creators on social media have this truly obnoxious habit of dashing back and forth between topics they are supremely unqualified for to give hot takes on world events that they very obviously just don't understand. I myself am guilty of this, and I've done videos on political topics, world events, and other breaking news, but for this one, a full-blown invasion in a region of the world I hardly understand, yeah, I wasn't about to put on a t-shirt that says, I'm a geopolitical expert now, and swing my metaphorical dick around as if I know what I'm talking about. I like to think I'm well informed, but it's just not a topic I can speak on with authority, so best not to speak about it at all. That kind of doesn't work anymore in a very roundabout way because the topic has rapidly expanded in such a prolific manner, it now touches on pretty much every single major industry on Earth. Obviously, the energy sector is affected, commodities, etc., especially oil, but more specifically for today, the video game industry is affected, and I want to discuss the situation in depth while examining the ethical pitfalls and opening up a forum of dialogue for viewers in the comment section to exchange their ideas on what this will do, why it's happening, if it even should be happening, and what the outcome might eventually be. The situation is pretty simple, but also extends far beyond just the video game sector. Major financial corporations like PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, etc. have ceased operations in Russia. That right there is a pretty big deal and has actual noticeable impact on the country's economy. Even bigger, however, certain politicians, such as Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, in a CNN interview, suggested that we should kick every Russian student out of the United States. I don't even have strong enough words to condemn this kind of mindset. He is a man who deserves no respect and no position in our government. However, setting aside the more hyperbolic and extreme cases of retaliation, the video game industry itself has begun to get involved, and this is where the effects become less impactful and feel quite a bit more performative. One of the most powerful actions, powerful and in my opinion largely immoral, comes from Twitch. It turns out that Twitch has now halted outgoing payments to Russian creators, and this comes in the wake of economic sanctions, which might be the case that they are legally bound on this course of action. It does actually appear that way, but regardless of the technicalities, this is a move that will simply strip away necessary income to citizens of a country whose currency is actually collapsing. Twitch is opting to deprive everyday people, intentionally, of what is, in some cases, their only stream of income. That is no small thing, and should be categorized in a way that accurately examines what sort of impact it will have. Basically, that kind of decision by a company related to the gaming industry is a few steps above what comes next. What comes next is a widespread movement by nearly all major gaming publishers and corporations to cut off the Russian people. Microsoft, Apple, Samsung, Sony, Warner Brothers, Nintendo, and Electronic Arts, among others, have banned Russia from their products and services, followed soon after by Take-Two Interactive, Ubisoft, Activision Blizzard, CD Projekt Red, and Epic Games. The majority now of all AAA video games are held back from Russia completely, making a very clear move to target and harm the Russian people, not the Russian government. This is where we get into the inevitable quagmire of diverging opinions online, but I find it impossible to justify these actions. On the one hand, economic sanctions as an effort to mitigate open violent conflict, it's hard for me to disagree with that on a fundamental level. I believe it would be hard for most civilized people to disagree that striving to end an outright war with whatever nonviolent means are at your disposal is probably a good thing, but the idea of shutting down non-related services to the Russian people, that is entirely different. By many accounts, the Russian people are, themselves, victimized by the government. Anti-war protests are ending with mass incarceration, and beyond the simple act of banning new video game sales in Russia, Ukrainian Digital Minister Mikhailo Fedorov was calling for Microsoft and Sony to block all Russian and Belarusian accounts, while isolating all Russian gamers from international events. The act of banning accounts is a step above the suspension of sales, because it means that Russian players would lose access to all of their games. And before the inevitable screecher in the comments starts yelling about how it's necessary and a small price to pay, and they are bombing civilians, so you don't want them to do that, right? You must be for that if you're saying all this. Breathe, calm down, think about the situation rationally, and then start typing. A Russian parent who makes money from Twitch or YouTube playing, shall we say, Halo, that citizen, who would be arrested if they went to an anti-war protest in the first place, might now be cut off on two separate fronts from their general income. What can this person realistically do to stop the war? The honest, rational answer is nothing, but the emotional, impulsive response might be, well, they better just find a way then. Isolating and frankly demeaning nearly 150 million people is not a good thing to do. And yet, as Democratic congressmen float the idea of expelling all Russian students from their universities, entertainment companies, joined by sites like Netflix or providers like Disney, Paramount, and Universal, are cutting off the entire Russian populace from their services. What do we realistically think is going to happen here? Do we believe that citizens who are already opposed to the war will say, well, shit, now I can't play any games or watch any movies or escape the oppressive reality of modern geopolitics? Totally understandable. I respect that decision. Guess I'll go overthrow my government now. Or will this breed resentment and be used as a mechanism to galvanize an isolated population against the outside world that is now stigmatizing and punishing all of them for things that they simply don't control? Remember, Russia is not a democracy. Russian citizens are not able to exercise power at the ballot box in an election, and yet somehow we have arrived in a world where corporations who provide video games are unilaterally banning players based purely on national heritage. Tell me how that really sounds. Genuinely, think about this. We are now punishing 150 million people in escalating ways with escalating rhetoric outside the bounds of political or governmental sanctions just to hurt the people themselves. And we are justifying that by saying, oh, well, they are Russian and the Russian government did something bad, so it's okay. What? Furthermore, conflict is almost always supported by propaganda. All nations are susceptible in some way or another. I'm not going to speak from the United States and say that we don't have propaganda here, but somehow we believe that punishing a nation's individual citizens will break through a barrier that has been reinforced for decades and wake them up to overthrow the government. One can make a realistically informed argument on how economic harm will curb the assault itself and blunt the military's push into Ukraine, but most of these Western companies now halting services in Russia are not doing economic harm. They are simply reinforcing the idea that the West hates Russia and will do anything it can to harm the people there. Here's an example of just how asinine and ridiculous the movement against Russia has become. To be clear, I am not siding with Russia or condoning any of its military action. I am merely commentating on the absurdity of our Western corporate response to all this. Hopefully in a minute you will see why. Currently, as I make this, 10 US governors have banned Russian vodka from state-run liquor stores. Okay, cool. Well, in some of those states, they targeted, among other brands, Stolichnaya. Consumers have begun a boycott for this brand as well, seeing it as a Russian product. Smaller venues have even taken to social media, like this, ski slope bar or something, making a huge performative display of not serving Russian products and dumping out their Stolichnaya bottle down the drain bravely. Sure, fine, they can do what they want, whatever. Except, Stolichnaya is actually produced in Latvia, not Russia, owned by a company called SPI Group, headquartered in Luxembourg. But hang on, it gets better. The founder of SPI Group, Yuri Shefler, has been engaged in a 15-year legal battle with the Russian government over control of the brand because the Russian government wants to control Stolichnaya production, but doesn't right now. But wait, even better, I'm not finished. Yuri Shefler is an outspoken critic of Vladimir Putin, who does not support the war and has citizenship in the UK and Israel. Western culture could not possibly have picked a worse brand to go after. All of this is to say that we are entering into a dangerous period of time where blanket action against people who would simply go to prison if they spoke out about a war that they might not even have a complete understanding of in the first place due to a state-run media machine, plus the fact that they have no actual democratic control in any sort of real election cycle, and thus risk their very lives by taking action on a subject they probably aren't fully informed of, or aren't being fully informed of by the state-run media, after being cut off by major Western companies. That kind of action, generally speaking, is becoming normalized right now, and it's escalating. There are even instances where Russian homes are being vandalized in certain states, right? This is a far-reaching problem that is actually growing in severity as I make this video. Banning Russian gamers from their accounts isn't going to stop the war. It's just one small step in a spiraling reaction by Western corporate culture where lines are beginning to be crossed, and the positive results are negligible at best if they even exist. I don't know where it ends, but it's really disconcerting to see. I don't have the power to impact or change any of it, not by a long shot, but I wanted to publish this video as a way to provoke thought and discussion, because what I am witnessing right now is rapidly morphing from some sort of reasonable response or understandable response to an outlandish extreme where demonization of all Russian people is on the horizon. And that kind of extreme should not be or should never be tolerated, really. Gaming is a small corner of the world, but when practically every single major publisher has decided to cut off the Russian people, it seemed relevant enough to warrant a discussion about why it's happening in the first place and where it leads. Remember, even if you are out of your mind emotional right now and want to scream about how any action is justified, Russia needs to be punished right now by everyone after accusing me of being pro-war or otherwise evil because of this video, take a drink of water, go outside, touch some grass, and then come back. If you still want to pop a blood vessel as you type out your comment about this subject, go ahead. I might even read it. Probably not, but it's worth a try if you care that much. Anyway, that's it. If you want to support the channel, there are links down below, mostly locals and Patreon to get away from ad revenue on YouTube. Also Odyssey, which is a YouTube platform alternative itself. Merchandise, another YouTuber to check out. Social media, etc., etc. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.